Oh my God. I excited or what? I am extremely excited right now, wherever you are joining around the world. This is Welcome You to a wonderful program with me, Mama Helen and you, all the way from the United Kingdom today. I am super excited about what is going to be happening. I'm so glad that a lot of you are already joining, and it gives me so much joy because the topic of today, it's really thought provoking, and I'm sure that a lot of people will be liberated at the end of the day. Well, listen, the danger of inferiority complex. That's what we're actually looking at. We have two wonderful people that will be joining you during the course of this program. And of course, like Helen said in our posts, it is for all of us to actually make our contribution. I want to hear from you. I want you to talk to us. I want us to hear from you tonight. We know that without a shadow of doubt, you will be able to add something to today's program. Again, the topic of today is the danger of inferiority complex. An inferiority complex is a chronic feeling of inadequacy or insecurity that can interfere with daily life. It is characterized by the belief that you are physically or mentally inferior to others, whether that belief is based on reality or not. As a matter of fact, these actually stem, or it is diagnosed by a notable psychologist named Alfred Adler. He was the one that was very curious, wanted to find out why people, tend to struggle with the inability to fulfill their goal or to establish or to realize their goals. Okay, so on today's Mama Helen and you, I can't wait to bring in these wonderful people with me today that will be doing justice to today's program. And again, like Helen said, it is very interactive. It is something that we can actually call in. I'm going to be leaving the number to call in a moment. It is Mama Helen and you after all. And I know that by the time you listen to these people, and of course, in general, you would probably leave home with something or you have a take home at the end of this. So let me just go ahead and start adding them right away. Let me hug them immediately. Immediately.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you too?
I'm super good. I'm super good. I'm
Great.
super good.
Hello,
Awesome. Good
everyone.
evening.
Hello, Coach
Good
Tola.
Good
evening. Well,
evening.
Hello.
how many years now, Mr. Emmanuel? It's been years, it's been ages, and I'm also seeing
It's been many months.
Coach Tola Ayeni as well. It's a pleasure having both
Yes,
of you on Mama Helen
Thank
and
you.
you today.
I'm happy to be here.
This is awesome. Well, knowing fully well on the topic of today, because we want to see how we can maximize time. Oh my God, we've actually, well, okay. We need to run with time now. Well, the very first person, a lady, they said ladies first, right? So let's start with that. Is Coach Tola Ayenim, who is the CEO and co-founder of Passion to Profit Limited, a coach with a strong background in financial services and a passion for empowering individuals, a certified Maxwell leadership coach, Dick's trainer, chartered accountant, financial advisor, and so on and so forth. This woman actually has actually proven herself in many areas. I might not be able to start mentioning them because of time, but she's definitely based here in the UK. It's a pleasure having you here on Mama Helen and you today.
Thank you so much. The pleasure is mine.
Awesome, awesome. And then, well, this is a non-phase. He's been here, I beg your pardon, many times with us. Mr. Emmanuel Udolphier, qualitative research consultant and founder, Savannah Junior Care Foundation. Emmanuel Udolphier is a passionate advocate for African children, an adolescent. Is the founder of Savannah Junior Care Foundation, whose vision is an African continent young person has the opportunity to fulfill their potential. He focuses on helping young people and so on and so forth. He's so loaded. So tonight we're having these wonderful people. Since we started the introduction, bringing in Coach Tola, let us start with the man in the house today, Mr. Emmanuel. Could you please tell us what today's topic is all about? What it means, for example. What does it mean to have inferiority complex? Can you hear me? Inferiority complex,
I'm
what
sorry,
does it
I
mean?
didn't get that.
Okay, I said,
Is that
what
for me?
does, yes, please. It is actually for you. What is inferiority complex? What does it mean to
All
have
right, thanks so much.
inferiority complex? Okay.
Yes, thanks so much for having me around. So, to feel inferior, or like you mentioned,
Yes.
having inferiority complex, is a pervasive feeling. It's a deep one, and it's also mainly psychological. So, it's a
Uh-huh.
feeling where an individual feels inadequate,
Okay.
inadequate in the ability to achieve things, ability
Uh-huh.
to measure up to peers, or ability to even attain any specific milestone in life. And it's a
Okay.
major thing that has kept people from achieving their God-given potential. And
Yes.
with help, with therapy, with giving ourselves some level of I would call it allowance. Being gentle on yourself, being less critical. People can be able to come out of it. So
Mhm.
feeling inferior is a major problem. It's a deep one, and as we would get to know in the course of the program, that a lot of factors, especially in the early stage of life. contribute to these feelings. We are talking about the primary unit of socialization, the family. This is where everybody
Okay.
learns, how
That's
to
right.
talk with each other.
Mm-hmm.
We learn languages, how to
Mm-hmm.
organize ourselves. We
Mm-hmm.
get meaning out of the family unit. And so
That's
some
right.
of the family practices that begin to shape, this feeling of inferiority can include how parents criticize their children,
Okay. Mm.
excessively
Mm.
critical.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
children
Well,
begin to believe that,
yes. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
yes. So that's like a background.
Okay, that's the background. All right. Okay. I'm sure Coach Tola can wait. Can you please jump in? What would you consider to be, from your own angle, inferiority
Thank you very
complex?
much, Dr. Helen, for having me.
It's
And
a pleasure.
lovely to meet you, Mr. Emmanuel. Yeah, inferiority complex is indeed psychological, and it is multifaceted. There are a number of researches that have been done.
Mm-hmm.
It's a deep feeling within that makes one feel like a lack of self-esteem, a lack of there is a self-doubt and the belief that you're not worthy. And it stems from a kind of comparison. It could be self-comparison, and it could also be the words and the environment that one has developed in. And as Mr. Emmanuel was alluding to, what happens in our early years, they are very instrumental in affecting who we become as adults. So, for instance, if somebody grew up in a place where praise was not the order of the day, people
Mm-hmm.
were criticized, you were told you were not good looking, you're fat, you're this, you're that. And, as children are known to be sponge. They take in everything that is thrown at them. So they imbibe that and they begin to feel, oh, I am less than this. I am not good enough. I am being compared with my siblings. I'm being compared with my friends. I'm this, I'm that. And that over time registers in the subconscious of the person. And as they grow into adulthood, that begins to play upon them. If they suffer any criticism or bullying in school, that reinforces that belief. And then they begin to act in different ways, whether you are overcompensating, whether you are avoiding situations, isolating oneself. So those are some of the signals that we could see, maybe as parents or as leaders, to know
Uh-huh.
that maybe something is not quite right. Maybe
Right.
something is going on, and we should pick on those early signs as quickly as possible. So it is psychological, but it's something that we can pick on easily and start to, build that child up, build that person up, and begin to reprogram them. It's like a programming. When you've got something programmed, it spools out what you've programmed into it. There's nothing else for it to spool out. So now we have to kind of abort, retry, erase, and then reprogram the person. And I
Program.
agree with Mr. Emmanuel when he talks about therapy, because that is a way to reprogram the person to know that they are a person of worth. They are a person that can be self-actualized. They are a person that has purpose, because God hasn't created anyone without a purpose. So yes, inferiority complex can be a problem. And we can't shy away from it. In our African background, it is prevalent because our society is not used to giving children praise. And therefore, we all have suffered from those things as we grew up, and it's
Hmm.
something that we need to overcome.
Hmm. It's something that has to be, you need to overcome. Okay, so is this generic then? Would you say, no, is it genetic rather, not generic? Is it genetic?
It's not genetic, because if you look at siblings in the same family,
Mhm.
they will turn out differently. If it was genetic, then all of them should have that same thing.
That's same.
Uh, Interestingly, I was having a conversation with my daughter today, and I was talking about perspective. And I said, we're four siblings in my family, and we all grew up in the same family, same father, same mother, and all of that. But if you ask each of us, we will have a different perspective. The firstborn is going to say, oh, I was given responsibility for all of them. The second one will say, oh, the firstborn was behaving as though she was the boss of me. And then the others will have their own stories. So it's not genetic at all. there may be a predisposition. So an individual may be of the sensitive type, words mean a lot to them. And therefore, when those words are spoken, they take it to heart more. Whereas another person, words don't mean anything. They say it and the person just bounces on and says, oh, well, they just said whatever they like. It doesn't bother me. So if you take those two people, you're going to say, oh, why are they responding differently? We all have our own individual personalities. So the personality also comes into play. The things that are triggers for them. For some people, is word. For some people, it could even be look. Oh, he looked at me funny. That kind of thing. So it all depends on the environment. The environmental factor is more of a factor than genetics.
Environmental. What about you, Mr. Mano?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So, it is. I totally agree with Coach Tola. It is
Okay.
barely genetic because, as I would want to say, the personality type of the person is a major factor, right? So we have two major extroverted temperaments and two, introverted temperaments. So somebody, for instance, who is what's that, melancholy, right? So we know of the four temperaments. Melancholies are the ones that are most self-critical, right? So
Yes.
they take things to heart very much. So take for instance, they do not achieve very well in a test at school. They begin to think deeply and say, "Oh, I failed this test. It means I don't have the mental capacity to be able to do well in that test." And besides, a challenge like that is just an opportunity for them to get better. But for someone with that kind of temperamental trait, they tend to take it
Yeah.
to their hearts. And because they do
Yeah.
not really say much, they don't speak much, they take so much to heart and they brood upon those easily. But for people who are melancholies and sanguines, they are go happy. You see something, to them, they just bounce it up and off they go. Right. So totally.
So you're actually speaking to your coping mechanism as an individual, isn't it? We all differ in that area. All right, now let's quickly look at, the acts. What are the things? I mean, how do you detect if someone is actually laboring under this?
Hmm.
What are the
That's a good
features? What are
question.
the yes?
If I could go first.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm trying to recall. So I would say one major area or
Okay.
sign you would see to tell that someone is
Mhm.
suffering from an inferior complex is
Yes.
what they say and what they do. So
Hmm.
I'll quickly run through a scenario. I was once a language art teacher at an African
Okay.
American school,
Okay.
and I had 12 students, 12 of them, and then
Okay.
one of them was excessively always tired. You know,
Hmm.
it was difficult to get 5 minutes of our rapt attention.
Hmm.
She struggled to write. She sleeps in class. She doesn't even eat her food. Most times I have to call her and feed her myself. So this particular time, I was teaching them physical health education, and the topic was outdoor games. So I
Mhm.
needed to help them to understand the subject. So I asked them, I put them into different groups. I told them about football. So I put them into
Okay.
different groups and I told them they were going to create a football field. They were going to create the players, different tasks. So I put them into three different groups. And then there was
Okay.
this wonderful girl, 7-year-old, Anita, not real name now. So I said, you are going to join the group where you would draw out the players and then people will cut them out. And so Anita tells me, Mr. Mano, I cannot do it. I say, why? She said, it's ugly. I can't draw. I said, but you have
Oh
to
my
try. I
God.
said, Mr. Money, no, I cannot draw. And then long
Mm.
story short, it
The
was a
feeling of
shouting
being at
match.
the person.
I cannot, you can. I cannot, you have to try.
Okay.
Please try. Long story short, my voice was the highest, right?
Okay.
And then eventually she settled in to draw these football players. And guess what? Her image was the best in the entire group. I
Wow.
was so
Wow.
happy. And then I took her to every class and showed her what they had done. So my point here is I knew she had a problem with her self-esteem, her value, She felt so over time I began to also observe that she was someone who was constantly criticized by
Okay.
her primary caregivers. I had to discover that. So what the feeling of being inferior does is it doesn't even allow you try at all because you are afraid you are going to fail based on the belief that, oh, I don't have the capacity to even do something good. Do you understand? So over time,
Yes.
they just have this the laissez-faire attitude. Let me not even try because I'll fail. So that's
I'll
one way to go
fail.
about it. What they
Yeah.
say and how they
Hmm.
behave.
How, what they say and how they behave. Okay. Just I know you might have other things, because I noticed you've also possibly mentioned something similar to what he had just said now, so that we can glean more on today's topic. Let me just quickly get you to look into these two words: inferiority complex and low self-esteem. What would you consider are the difference? Are they the same, or are there? Yes.
Well, I think inferiority complex is the psychological issue. And then low self esteem is perhaps the symptom, what we see. Okay, so this person has a low self esteem of themselves. They are self critical, they are isolating. Those are the symptoms that we see. Now,
See.
maybe not all cases of low self esteem, it's the psychological issue of inferiority complex, but
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of linked together. You
Mm-hmm.
know, somebody with inferiority complex will have low self esteem. So when we see those symptoms as parents, as guardians, as leaders, that is a sign that we need to watch out for and need to try and build up that child's self-esteem or that person's self-esteem, such that it does not develop into full-blown inferiority complex where they now start, it becomes a psychological issue. They need therapy, they need counseling, and all of that. So I would say that the low self-esteem is the symptoms. That's what we see on the outside. You know, somebody can say, "Oh, I'm not good at doing this. Oh, I can't even write. Oh, I can't speak proper English. Oh, I don't know how to do math." You know, they keep on running themselves down, a kind of self-criticism. I can't. It's
Yes.
not I won't. I won't means that I have the ability, but I don't want to do it. But I can't means that I'm telling myself that I'm incapable of doing that. When we know very well that they perhaps are capable, but in their mind, they feel like they are not capable of doing it. So even with adults, listen to the way people talk about themselves. You know,
Mhm. You can
as a
almost
coach,
tell.
I talk about mindset a lot, and
Mhm.
our mindset affects everything that we do. It
Yeah.
affects our jobs, our businesses, it affects our spiritual lives, it affects the choice of relationship partners and all of that.
Mhm.
And it is the constant negative self-talk that we have to ourselves, and that is a low self-esteem. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, I can't attract the right kind of person. Oh, I can't this. Oh, so that is low self-esteem. But whether that now turns to full-blown inferiority complex is a matter for us as people who are in their lives to help them walk their way
Wait.
out of
Okay.
that situation.
Fantastic. When does it become dangerous then? When does it become dangerous? When does it move from a personal effect to translating it with other people, the people you relate with? Because someone who is suffering from this could come up with different behaviors that can be very, very inimical to other people's well-being. So what would you consider um, in that light?
Okay,
When
do I
does it
go now?
become dangerous? Yes, go ahead, please. Yes.
So two things I can think about right now is when it becomes dangerous is when it influences the person who is experiencing this particular complex to
Mhm.
not even attempt make a move, right? So I always say that good fortune favors the doers. But
Yes.
because people with this inferiority complex, they believe that they are not even good enough. They would rather not try because of the fear that they would fail at something. So what they
Okay.
do is they don't even try at all. So they are just laid back. And believe me, when somebody is laid back, time will just pass and the person will be able to say, I have done this, I have done that. They would start a project
Yes.
and they will not finish. Starting is even
Mhm.
it's a difficult thing for them, right? And then number two, they have problems maintaining, starting, and even maintaining relationships. We're
Mhm.
talking professional, We are talking romantic relationship because they are afraid of criticism. Remember? So when they have
Yes.
come to believe that when somebody says you are not good at this, instead of seeing it as an opportunity for them to get better, they see it as a put down. So their egos or their feelings are hurt, and they would rather
Mm-hmm.
just avoid people, avoid situations that should naturally help them to get better at certain things. So somebody who is suffering from this condition or from this psychological situation
Yes.
is not going to be an achiever really. And so
We'll
for them to be able
struggle.
to move from that place to a place where they actually get out and try things, it would need the help of others, the help of
Okay.
protective circles. I remember some
Okay.
time ago when I was learning the skill that I currently work at, the person who was teaching me once told me, Emmanuel, you don't know how to code. That was the statement. It was final. It was so authoritative. I didn't know when I just said in 3 sentences. I said, I can code, I can code, I can code. It was more like a reaffirmation for me. So I heard something contrary, but I just told myself, no, that can't be true. Even if I can't do it perfectly now, I am not worse off. I can get better, and I will get better. So sometimes, or most of the time, like we said, therapy and then affirmation, giving ourselves the room to fail or to make errors,
Okay.
and be gracious to ourselves. So when we
Okay.
make
Be gracious.
errors,
Okay. All right. Let me just quickly jump in. Someone with inferiority complex, uh, won't you think that there's a possibility for them to blame others for, I mean, having difficulty honing anything, their weaknesses, whatever they might have done, and all that stuff, because they don't want to be seen bad, or the aspect of pulling other people down? Because I mean, in the late term, I mean, so when people are suffering from inferiority complex, the tendency for them to think that the only way, especially when they are overperforming, the only way they can shine is to dim other people's lights. Can you speak
hmm,
to that, please?
that's a very good question. So sorry, do I let Coach Tola go?
Yeah, yes, you've already jumped in, so just go ahead and then she will come in later.
Okay, so something you just mentioned now sounds very much like
Yeah,
narcissism. Okay,
not true.
so there are people that overcompensate. So because of
Overconfidence.
that feeling of being inferior,
Mm-hmm.
they want to live a larger than life,
Life kind of. Mm,
thingy. So they
mm,
they are proud, they are arrogant, and they consciously put other people down
down.
just to make themselves feel good. And they always seek for people's affirmation, validation,
Affirmation.
and all of that. Do you
Mm-hmm.
understand? So of
Mm-hmm.
course, it's one of the dangers of this particular complex we are talking about, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a dangerous thing because they are, in quotes, they are hurt, and they're
Mm-hmm.
even going ahead to hurt more people
More
so
people
that
as
they
well.
can come out of their situation. But of course, that's not a healthy coping mechanism. It's
No, not
not.
at all.
And
Mm-hmm.
that person needs a mindset change, like Coach Tola talked about. And that mindset, sadly, it may need an internal decision or somebody outside of them, because change cannot be forced on a person. A horse can be led to the river, but it cannot be forced to drink water, right? So we
Mm-hmm.
just need to find a way to be able to point this to them. And of course, change is personal, as I say again.
Okay.
Let,
Yes.
let me jump in
Question.
by saying that inferiority complex becomes a danger from day one, from the moment that that thing starts to take root. We may not even see the symptoms of it yet, but as
Yes.
soon as it starts to take root in the person, it's growing and it's growing and it's growing. And
Mm-hmm.
then by the time we start seeing the symptoms, it's like a plant. When the seed is buried in the ground, we don't see anything. But by the time it
Mhm.
starts to germinate, it's grown a little bit. So by the time we start to see the symptoms, it has actually grown. That is the time. I mean, I did a bit of agriculture. If that is a weed, that is the time to kill it quickly before it overpowers
Yes,
the
sir.
whole field or the garden or whatever it is, or the farm. So By the time we start to see the symptoms, we need to take drastic action, because it's dangerous to the person, and it's also dangerous to all the
It
people
endangers other
who are
people as well. Good.
around that person. Exactly.
That's right.
So we need to nip it in the bud, as it were, before it starts to spread its tentacles. Because we start to see things like overcompensation. We start to see things like avoidance. We start to see things like jealousy and envy. And
Mhm.
sometimes we put off those things and say, "Oh, he's just overreacting." But there is a bigger issue that needs to be dealt with appropriately, so that it doesn't continue to spread and grow
Mhm.
and grow. It's like a cancer. When you want to treat cancer, you actually cut open and take it out. You
That's
don't,
right.
put ointment on it and, pamper the person. And you have to do something drastic to actually take it out, because it continues to grow and then destroys the healthy cells. And that is what this is capable of doing.
That's the danger. I mean, both of you have done justice to that, and I love that a great deal. Now, in Africa setting, I mean, when we started, both of you actually addressed this, and this has to do with the way we are brought up. One way or the other, people must have suffered this low self-esteem, which could now complex into having an inferiority complex, if not tamed or handled, or should I say, if the coping mechanism it's not as strong as being able to overcome it in time. Now, how do you then speak to them? I mean, what do you say to parents out there who believe that, the only way you can correct your child is to bullying, um, threats? Some parents believe that, okay, in order to get his brain right, I need to threaten him with this, and all that stuff, forgetting that that can actually impede the development, emotional development or psychological development of that child. So how do you, because I mean, as parents, we want to be able to inculcate, we want to be able to, impute morals and all that. But sometimes this thing really goes into another level and could be very damaging. So what do you say to parents out there quickly in this regard?
Parenting is one of the toughest jobs that we will ever do, because guess
I
what?
know.
Oh
There
yes.
is no handbook, there's no school to go to,
Yes,
and
I mean,
you
so
just play
true.
it by ear. And sometimes, whether you are soft on them or you are harsh on them, you can never be right for going wrong.
So
So
true.
I salute all parents out there. It's not an easy job.
It's not an
It's a
easy job. Yeah.
thankless one, and
Mhm.
perhaps our reward is in heaven. But having said all of that, and
Mhm.
this is especially directed to African parents,
Okay.
we need to learn new ways. Our world is changing. We
Mhm.
cannot use, the systems that my grandparents or my great great grandparents used, and think that we want to use it in 2024, when our children are exposed to social media, to internet, and they can compare. When they go to schools and they can talk to teachers and they can talk to friends and say, "Oh, my mom did this. Hey, your mom did what? Why on earth would she do that? Let's go and
Uh-huh.
report." So
Yes.
we need to learn other methods. It's not only one method suits all. We have
Mhm.
to learn how to understand our children. Again,
Mhm.
children have different personalities. So the
Mhm.
fact that you did one way with the first child doesn't mean that that way is going to work with every other child. You will come across a child that is so different from everyone else, and you have to relearn what it means to parent that particular child. Each child has to be parented. Each
Parenting.
child, you want to bring out their personality. You want to bring
Mhm.
out their self-worth. You want to help them to
You're
become
actually talking about correct for sure, but then correct with love. Let
correct with
them.
love. Sit down with your child, talk. It shouldn't have to be about physical correction. It shouldn't have to be about
All the
bullying.
time.
It shouldn't have to be about all of those things. You can
Mhm.
talk to them. You can use scriptures, to correct them. You can tell them why they need to do what you're telling them to do. Because a lot of times, I know that when my daughter was growing up, her favorite word was why. You tell her to tidy her room, she will say why. And she told me by herself, she
I
said,
can have
Mom,
that. I have one like that at home.
she
Yes,
said,
why is
Mom,
that?
my favorite word is
Why is
why.
that?
And
Yes.
I said, it's a good word. It means that you're inquisitive. It
You
means
want to
you're
know.
curious. It means
Mhm.
you want to know more. And I'll tell you why. And I will sit that down and I will say, okay, this is the reason why. This is the reason why. If you do
Yes.
this, you get this, that, 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 that. If you don't do this, my daughter likes her food. If you don't do this, no jollof
Then
rice
you're
for
not
you,
going
no
to
eba,
have this.
no pro, no this, no that.
And
She'll
all
be like,
that.
okay, mom, calm down. Okay, I'll go and
Okay.
do it now.
Okay.
So you must know how to, even now. I mean, she's a young adult now. Sometimes when she's doing something and I say, maybe she's gone out and she hasn't come back, I just cook a real good pot of soup. I
Okay.
take a picture and I send it to her. I said, food is ready. Whenever you're ready to come, within 30 minutes, my daughter will appear. You have to learn new ways of doing the same thing. If I was screaming and shouting on the phone, that's not going to do anything.
It's not going
Not going
to.
to do
And
anything.
we must
You
also we
have to
must
tell me
also
I'm
learn.
an adult.
If I may just chip in because of time, we must learn to say sorry even when we've
Oh,
done wrong.
yeah.
Okay, as
Oh,
parents,
oh
because
yeah.
that's another way to hit. They
Yeah.
want to learn from us. It's not just about us telling them do this and that and that and that, but the ability to own, to take ownership and take responsibility for our actions,
Mm,
and to also to let them know that even though we are parents, but that doesn't mean that we can't get it wrong sometimes, because this is a great challenger. Someone with an inferiority complex who believes that, you know what, I'm always right. Because you also have, there's a difference between inferiority complex and also feeling superior, superiority complex as well. Okay. And this is when it goes another way. Anyway, I'm sure you're going to deal with that. And I think I would want Mr. Miller to dwell on that a little bit, for us. Okay. Now, back to where I was going. The ability to let them know that, see, if we get it wrong, we can say sorry.
yeah.
So that when they go out there, as they grow as well, maybe they become an uncle or they become a father or a mother, as they go on in life or amongst their peers, when they do wrong, they must learn how to say, I am sorry.
Thank you so much, Coach Tola. It's been, when you started talking, I was like, parenting. It's a
It's a
whole
lot.
lot of work,
Mhm.
especially for African parents. And I remember talking with somebody for a very long time. I love talking about parenting because parenting lies at the heart of the most of the problems that children face. And I also believe that the devil has particularly taken interest in attacking the family because he
Mhm.
or she knows that when the
Knows.
family's foundation is faulty, then the purpose that God had in plan for an individual is either
Mhm.
shortchanged or it's difficult to attain. And
That's
so
right.
I once said that the world is filled with hurts and wounded people, so much so that anybody who is planning to start a family and raise children should do that with knowledge and not add to the statistics.
To the statistics.
Do you understand? So I then said, now parenting is not beans, it's not rice and beans, right?
Yeah.
And I,
Mhm.
I, I imagine when two people are planning to come together, they do counseling, they read books
Sorry,
on
we're
finance.
really running out of time. Can you? Sorry.
Okay, so
All
my,
right.
my, my point here is knowledge-based parenting.
Okay.
Knowledge-based parenting. And give now people who are not able to accept that they are wrong, they are danger waiting to happen because
Yeah.
they
That's
would
true.
also raise people who can never be wrong. And so
Wrong
it's
as
it's
well.
it's, it's it's a
Yeah.
chain, it's a chain effect.
Superiority
You don't,
complex. Mhm.
yes, oh yes. It is because of
Mhm.
a closed mindset that people assume that they cannot be wrong, or they believe they are wrong, but they would not admit it. Now, admitting
Yeah.
wrong also gives a level of confidence to children that they
That's
Mhm.
right.
also can be wrong, but they don't, beat themselves up for that. It it
Mm,
Yes.
it allows for growth with children because
Mhm.
they are growing, they are watching role models in parents, But if the parents do not model the right things, then they would
Yes.
practically fail at it.
They will practically fail. So the need for us to, okay, because of time, how do someone suffering from inferiority complex overcome this? How how do what are the things that needs outside of going to therapy and all that? What are the other things that needs to be done, or what should a person do, someone wanting to overcome an impurity complex situation?
I will jump in and say, I
Okay,
want to
yeah.
give an ABC. A is
Yeah.
about awareness, being aware that, okay, this is an issue. I have a level of inferiority complex.
Mhm.
I'm constantly judging myself. I'm constantly comparing myself to other people. I'm constantly looking on what is happening on social media, and I'm modeling my life along those. It's like I'm not living a real life. I'm a bit fake in the way that I'm living.
Mhm.
That self-awareness has got to happen, because even if people tell you from the outside, if that person is not self aware, they're going to feel, oh, he's just criticizing me. She's just criticizing me. So, awareness is the first step. Then the B is
Self-awareness.
be intentional.
Be
Now that
intentional.
we are aware that, oh, there seems to be an issue. Why am I
Mhm.
like that? Why am I constantly judging myself and doing all of this thing? Then I've
Mhm.
got to be intentional to look for solution. I've got to, kind of coach myself or counsel myself to say, why am I doing this thing? Go back to the root of it. If there is the need for counseling, go for it. But also kind of speak to yourself and say, no, I don't have to constantly compare myself with that person. I am an individual. I am unique.
And I'm good enough.
And
I'm
I'm good
enough.
enough.
I'm
You
good
know,
enough. Yes. Mhm.
I could have my own strengths. I could have my
Mhm.
own weaknesses.
Mhm.
That makes me human. That makes me who I am. I come as a package.
Yeah.
And then the
It's a
C
total
is
package.
exactly. And then the C is consistency. Consistency in personal development, in developing oneself, in
Yes.
reaffirming oneself. I like the example that Mr. Emmanuel gave earlier. Somebody saying, oh, you can't code. And then you reaffirmed it and said, I can
I
code.
can.
I
I
can code.
can.
I can
I
code.
know.
I remember when I was doing my professional exams, I can. And, a lot of people had so much fear for I can. On my folder, I wrote it as I with a space and then can. I can, and
Mhm.
every time I pick up my folder to study, that's what I saw. And that's what I said to myself. And that's what I believed and put inside of myself. And it began to manifest, even though I was scared as well, even though I was afraid that, oh, maybe I was going to fail. I managed to get through that. So it is the affirmations and the words that we speak to one another, to ourselves, that will matter. So A, awareness, B, be intentional, and C, consistently improve yourself. Consistently seek ways of affirming yourself in a positive way.
Okay. What would you say to the word self care or self-love? Because you see, if you're not compassionate, then you will not be able to give yourself a pass, even when you think you're not living up to. And the pressure of, oh, wanted to be the best,
Mm,
oh, wanted people to see me as the best and all
mm,
that, sometimes it drives a lot of people
yeah.
into into being suffering from under this complex condition. Now, um how do you go about self-care, for example?
So self-care means that I'm aware of who I am and I'm aware of my needs, and I have to give myself grace. So even if I make a mistake, even if I get it wrong, I have to give myself grace and be gentle with myself and say, okay, you made a mistake. That doesn't make you a bad person. That doesn't mean that you're an evil person. You can
Mhm.
learn how to do it better. Even if you've made a mistake, learn how to do it better. That is self-care. That is the aspect of consistently improving ourselves and making sure that we show up as a better version of ourselves. So we might be something today, and we can always be better. We can improve ourselves. personal development. We study. We go to school for a number of years before we
So
can start
true.
to do a particular work. Even
Mm-hmm.
with trades, people do
Mm-hmm.
apprenticeship and they have to learn and learn and learn before they graduate from that trade. So we
Okay.
can't just say, oh, because I got it wrong one day, that means that I'm a bad person. No, it means that you're learning. I like one of the books by my mentor, John C. Maxwell. He says, sometimes we win, sometimes we learn.
Yeah.
It's not
I
about
love that.
failure. We're learning.
We're learning. It's a learning curve. I love that. Mr. Manuel, what would you
Yes,
say
ma'am.
concerning that? How do you overcome this? How do you overcome this? Because a lot of people, I mean, when I tried doing my research, I realized that quite a number of people actually suffering from this complex situation. And as we all well know, it has affected relationships, whether it is marriage, because if you're married to someone who has this complex situation, the tendency for that person, if it's the man, the person will make sure that the woman does not even raise her head, does not have a voice. He will feel that the only way he can control the woman is to reduce her to nothing.
Mm,
you know I
Mm.
mean, coming up strong and in a negative factor. If it is a woman, the man cannot breathe, he cannot even be around anything gender female gender, because to her, oh, everybody wants to take her husband, so it goes round and round like that. And a lot of relationships are ruined, businesses that ought to have come alive have gone down, all because of this. Why do people have politics in the boardroom? Why do they even have it at the place of work? It is still the same traits. Okay, so what must we do? How do we check this? Yeah, how do we overcome this?
mm,
So I like the way Coach Tola
Please,
gave us
before
the
before you say anything at all, I'm so sorry, Mr. Manuel. So
yeah.
should you want to call in, or you have your contribution or anything, please don't hesitate. You can either WhatsApp, or you can SMS, or you can call. The number to call or to uh, join us with this wonderful topic of today is to simply look at it on the screen. I just put it out there for you. Kindly call us or send us a message. If you don't want us to hear your voice, send us a message anyway. Someone wants to get blessed, and just be the blessing for that person. Okay, Mr. Manu, please go ahead.
Yes. So I was trying to say I like the way Coach Tola gave it the ABC.
Okay.
It was quite powerful, very powerful. So I also want to just comment and say a way we can help ourselves is if we expose ourselves to self-development in the way of
Mm-hmm.
reading, studying, meditating, whichever one, but reading must be a foundation. So the Bible
Reading
says
of
that the entrance of the word brings
mm,
light.
light.
amen.
So you see, what reading does is it exposes our frailties, our errors, our
Mm-hmm.
issues to us. And the Bible
Mm-hmm.
also says that somebody who has just studied the Bible and
Mm-hmm.
then goes away to do something entirely different is like someone who has looked in a mirror and then
Mm-hmm.
forgets what he looks like. Do you
Mm-hmm.
understand? So
Yes.
when we have a mindset that we want to grow by studying, so by studying I mean the Bible. Of course, any believer who studies only the Bible to self-improve is not going to improve very quickly.
So
You
true.
get, you get what I
You
mean?
have to,
So we
yeah,
need to
you
read
have
other books in
to.
psychology, psychiatry, sociology, how emotional intelligence. All of these things
Hmm.
count. So when
Yeah.
we read, we are interacting with material, with literature, because sometimes, as we mentioned earlier on, like Coach Tola was saying, some people are open to change, they're open to improvement. Some people not so well. Okay, there are some people who are just, they are hard in their mind. Oh, I'm just fine the way I am, I don't need to change for anybody, I'm just mm-mm. But if that person is able to interact with literature individually, then prayerfully ask God to help them to change themselves. We know in Galatians
Mm-hmm.
5:19, we know all those, fruit of the spirit that we also need. to be able to
Mm-hmm.
overcome these things. So it's first of all an awareness that we need to constantly study, read, and then of course the ABC then follows. So we need to be have an open mind that we are a work in progress. We are not just fine the way we are. I wouldn't go like that. That's a closed mindset. But when we know
Mm-hmm.
that we are not perfect and we can improve, get better, that way, the world is a better place, really.
Okay. Well, read. What about raising a support system? Someone, having someone at their sharing corner, and someone who is gentle and is kind, who seems to love you the way you are, and is ever generous with their words and all that. What would you say concerning that, Coach Tola?
Yeah, it's important to have a mentor or a coach in one's life, and we go by different titles. So for instance, a pastor can occupy that role in the spiritual sense. In the workplace, you may have a manager who is mentoring you for that workplace. In the
Mhm,
same way, when it comes to personal life, relationship, career advancement, you want to have a mentor and a coach. And these things are not far-fetched in the old setting. I know that in the days of maybe my grandparents, even my own parents, they had like, their societies where they come together. They had people that they called brother and sister, even though they were not related to one another. If they
mhm,
wanted advice, they would go and talk to this brother. That was a mentor then. They will go and talk to this sister. I know the number of times that people came to our house for marriage counseling. My mom wasn't a counselor. She wasn't a pastor. She wasn't any of
mhm.
those things. But they saw
Yes.
her as an elderly person in the
Mhm,
society, and they will come to her. So we need to, and I think, having imbibed Western culture, we're moving towards, oh, it's me and my family, and we're kind of isolating from that network that we need around us. We need
mhm,
that network, whether it's in the church, whether it's in the community, people that we know and we can trust, people that are ahead of us, maybe a few steps ahead of us, and can help us, disciple us and train us and mentor us and coach us. Somebody that you can be accountable to. I often have conversations with my young adults, and she says something like, oh, I can't do that. And I say, what makes you say that? I want to unwrap you with her. Why have you said that? You've just made this. She goes, oh, I don't know. No, there
okay.
must be a reason why you
There
said that.
has to be.
Is it an
There has to
experience
be
that
a
you had
reason.
before? Is it this? Is it that? And then we tear the thing completely apart. And I say, can you see that it's not true? Can you see that you just held on to
Mm,
something for no reason? She said, that's
yeah.
true, mommy. Thank you for helping me through that. So we need people like that in our life, even as adults, in your job, or maybe you want to start a business. You need somebody that
Mhm,
can hold your hand and make you
okay.
accountable and say, where is your business
Also,
plan? Let me go through your business plan
exactly.
with you. What are
So,
you doing?
so
Why are you doing what you
you need a mentor.
Yep,
Fantastic. Sorry, I
yep.
have to cut in because of time. We
That's
just
it.
have about 6 more minutes to go, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yes. Okay, so how do you deal with someone who makes you feel inferior? What do you do in that regard? I mean, bullying, it's more or less in that area, isn't it? Whether from
Yeah.
tertiary level or whatever level it is.
Mm.
Okay, how do you handle that, especially for the young
I, I'm
folks? Emmanuel, can you?
I'm glad
Yes.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I
Okay.
experienced a lot of bullying in high school, and it was
Oh,
not an enjoyable experience. It wasn't.
wow.
So
Wow.
I had parents who were typical African parents, very
Uh-huh.
judgmental, hardly ever praised. And then
Oh
I
no.
was enrolled in a school that was, quote, above
Mm-hmm.
my parents' financial and social status,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I
Yeah.
also encountered bullying. And then it was every school day I was always afraid. I would
Okay.
go to school late, and then I would be standing by the school gate waiting for the bell to go so I can disappear and avoid all my
Oh,
bullies. So it was terrible. So
I could
um
imagine.
thinking about this as a young person, we have to find a way to talk Find someone trusted, someone who you have observed over time, someone who is not judgmental. And well, sadly, there are not many of them, and that is why I was inspired to start a non-profit that listens to children, that you know gets them to talk about what's going on in their lives. And
Mhm.
it's not an easy skill. Listening is a
Mhm.
difficult skill in the today that we have. Trust me, to just sit and hear someone talk for 45 minutes straight, 1 hour
Okay.
straight, it is not easy.
All right. So
So we need
get
to
so
find
get someone that you can pour your heart
and
to.
listen to.
Number one.
Yes,
Okay. Number two, because of time. Yes.
yes, and then
W-
talk about what's going on. Find someone, find a
Okay.
circle that you can talk and not be judged about stuff, and then
Okay.
just
All right.
have an open mind
Let,
that
let,
things will
let's
come
let's
around.
jump to let's jump to Coach Tole because of time. 4 more minutes to go. Yes, please. And
Well,
I want you, Mr. Miller, to start thinking of what your passing word would be. Yes, please. Yes.
so we need to create the environment for people to be able to speak about it. We shouldn't make it a taboo that somebody is going through issues and therefore cannot talk about it. We should create that environment. We should be that listening ear. And also, have what we call accountability partners within like the coaching setting. Somebody that you can actually pour out your heart to and say, this is what's going on. This is what's going on. I mean, for children,
So I,
also,
I think it's about the same thing he said. Okay, because of time, Mr. Mono, what would you want to say? Two things here in one, and please in bullet form. Um, for someone who is under this condition, what do you offer that person? And someone who is at the receiving end, what would be your advice to that person? Very quickly,
So the first thing I would say, if
in
you're
bullet
watching
form.
this program, yes, this program right now, go back and study more. Study and know if some of the things we have talked about, whether or not you exhibit the trait of this complex. That's the first one. And if you are exposed to somebody, well, you have to focus on yourself first, because if you have this complex and you haven't gotten ahead of it, then you will always fall a victim to somebody who is also in that same category.
Same
So start with
category as well.
yourself.
Start with
Start
yourself.
with
Okay.
yourself. That's my closing remark.
Okay, coach,
okay,
your
so I
passing
want
word.
to just say, when we look at scriptures, that should always be our starting point.
Yeah.
Jeremiah 29:11 says, the plans that he has towards us are thoughts of good and not of evil, to give us an expected end. When we look at ourselves in the mirror, we must see somebody who has been created in the image of God. And that should be our starting point, to know that God put a lot of value into us. So we're not valueless and we're not people that can be discarded. Even if somebody is trying to make us feel inferior, it is the strength that we have on the inside of us that would make us stand, even in the face of bullying and in the face of, discrimination. We can extrapolate. That could be anything, racism, what
This
have
is
you.
another.
So whatever we have on the inside is what's going to stand on that day when our confidence is being shaken, or
Okay.
who we are as a person is brought
Okay.
to question. And that's why we
Awesome.
have to go back to God.
We need to go back to God. Well, it's been so wonderful having both of you with us tonight. I mean, as a matter of fact, I'm sure a lot of people have been blessed. Just listening, I've been blessed as well. Started with Coach Tola Ayeni. Thank you very much indeed for being here. And then, of course, Mr. Emmanuel Udofie, ever on point. Thank you very much as well for being here. For all our viewers, wherever you're watching around the world, thank you so very much for being a part of today's Mama Helen and You. I want to believe that one way or the other, we have impacted your life and you've been able to glean something out of this. Now, under normal circumstances, when you're looking at this word complex, what makes it complex is because it's so difficult. In fact, sometimes people who are under the same situation might not know because it's a complex issue. So, in handling anything complex, it's to seek for help, right? And that's what we've heard from our panelists today, on the need for you to seek for help. Seek for help. Now, you have for realization has to come in order for you to know that, okay, I need help. You have to realize that you are actually experiencing this. And then, of course, we talked about self-love. We talked about the need for you to stop comparing yourself with other people. You need to believe in yourself. And in believing yourself will mean you need to believe in God, because actually what would not translate to is God-fidence, not just confidence, but God-fidence. God mixed with your self-worth, value, and notarization that you're good enough. Never ever allow anyone make you feel less than who you are. You are good enough before God, whether you are tall, fair, dark, whichever position or whatever how you look, you are good enough. And of course, for young ladies and young men out there, there is someone out there who's good enough for you. Okay, so never let anyone make you feel less than who you are. Of course, we need to also learn how to celebrate ourselves with the little we have achieved, because that's another aspect to this. We set a mark goal. We want to we want to achieve certain things and all that, which is good, which is noble. However, even if it looks as though or seem you yet to achieve it, whatever little success there is, celebrate, that. Be happy, love yourself, so that you'll be able to help, love others as well. And then, like, we've been told, the need to surround ourselves with people that we can learn from, and people who can support us and encourage us as well. And of course, like Mr. Emmanuel said, read, read, and read. It has been a wonderful time just having all of you here with us today. Thank you so very much indeed. Don't forget to love and share. It is still Mama Helen and you. And then, of course, by the special grace of God, the last Saturday, which will be the last Saturday of the year 2024. You don't want to miss this as well, because we're coming up with something even more. Okay, to the glory of God. Once again, I want to say a big thank you for our counselors tonight. You have done perfectly well, wonderfully well, and we are truly grateful that you were able to make it tonight. Thank you very much indeed. Okay.
Thank you.
So
Thank
from
you,
us
Mama.
to you, it is to say a big bye-bye. And we love you. Love yourself as well. Okay. God bless you.
Bye.
Bye.